Hi class, today's topic is on deviance. When you first hear the term deviance, a lot of times your mind might jump to thinking about crimes and the law. But I want you to know that the term deviance is more general than that, and it refers to any behavior that is considered socially unacceptable. Deviance is something that is socially constructed. So I want to talk about that first, and then later I will apply the three main theories to deviance. So in regards to it being socially constructed, that means that we as social people, we as members of a society, are the ones that are deciding what behavior is considered normal behavior and what behavior is considered deviant behavior. This is very evident when you look cross-culturally. You can look at other countries and see that some behavior might be identified as deviant or even illegal in other countries, but is considered normal here in the United States. For example, in Singapore, there's a ban on chewing gum. Now, I read recently that the ban has been adjusted to where you can actually go get a prescription from your doctor if you'd like to chew sugar-free gum. But that is the only option for that country in chewing gum. In the United States, chewing gum is considered perfectly normal and up to you to make that choice. You can also see that deviance is socially constructed within our own society, that some behavior that is considered normal in one part of the country might be considered deviant in another part of the country. I don't want to offer examples here of that because I want that to be part of your discussion forum option this week, where you will be offering ideas of identifying behavior that's normal in one setting but deviant in another. So that'll be something interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. Also, in regards to thinking about it, that deviance is socially constructed, an image that I like to use is that of a bubble, where if you think about behavior, and around normal behavior is a bubble that society has created. Within the bubble is normal behavior. Outside of the bubble is deviant behavior. So we have people that are behaving on a regular basis inside the bubble, and we have people who are regularly behaving outside the bubble and clearly being deviant. But I want you to think about it as a bubble versus a circle, because this boundary around the behavior is movable. It is changeable. You can have a person or enough people inside the bubble of normal behavior pushing on the edge, trying to change what's considered normal and deviant, and actually make the bubble expand to where now, as it expands, it is now taking into it behavior that used to be considered deviant. Now it's considered normal. You can look back historically and see that this has happened, that social change has occurred and behavior that was once deviant is now considered normal. A simple example is if you look at dress and what was considered appropriate bathing suit attire 50 years ago. Now you look at bathing suits today, back then would have been considered completely deviant to wear a string bikini in public. Now, not so much. Actually quite normal in a lot of settings. So that's one example of how deviance is socially constructed and can change because it is created by people and people change. Okay, now all of that was talking about it as a social construction, that deviance is socially created. Now let's apply the three main theories. The first theory we talk about is functionalism, often called structural functional theory. And the basic premise behind this theory is that we as people create social structures that are beneficial to society. So when you think about deviance, a lot of times you initially think, well, that's dysfunctional. No, we actually have functionalists, and a lot of theorists stand behind this theory to say that deviance provides several benefits for society. One main theorist that argues this is Emil Durkheim. He is actually one of our early theorists to the discipline. He helped create sociology as a discipline, and his name is Emil. Sometimes people see it, the spelling, and think it's Emily Durkheim and that it's a female, but it's not. He is a man, and it's pronounced Emil Durkheim. And he argues that deviance serves several functions that are beneficial to society. He argues that it helps to clarify what is acceptable behavior. It clarifies the values and norms of a culture. And being social people, we need to know what's acceptable. We need to know what behavior will be rewarded and what behavior will be punished. We like to know what's expected of us, and we as a society like predictable behavior. Another function that comes out of deviance is social change. Like I mentioned before with the bubble example, is that enough people can make a change in what is considered normal versus deviant behavior. So that's just a couple of the functions that he focuses on. Another theorist that falls under the functionalism umbrella is Robert Merton. His theory is called strain theory, Robert Merton's strain theory. And he falls under the functionalist umbrella because he argues that the structure of society can encourage or discourage people from deviance. He argues that each culture identifies culturally approved goals and culturally approved means. And in the United States, the culturally approved goal of our culture is material success. Now, that might sound shallow, but we are a capitalist society, and achieving material success is taught to us at a very young age through our socialization, that is appropriate behavior to strive for a successful job, to strive for plenty of money in the bank and possessions. Now, we also learn, though, through our socialization that there are culturally approved means that are allowed for you to go about reaching the goal of material success. And the culturally approved means include getting an education, working hard to get a job, and earning money to go out and be materially successful. Culturally approved goal, material success. Culturally approved means, education, hard work, good job. He then identifies 5 different categories, and he argues that everyone falls into one of these 5 categories. The first one is conformists. Most of us fall into this category. We accept the goal and we accept the means. The second category is called an innovator. This is someone who accepts the goal but rejects the means. They want the goal of material success but are either not willing to go through the means or not able to go through the means. These are people that maybe, Merton argues, structurally, society has created some kind of obstacle for these people, this type of individual, where they're not able to get a good education for whatever reason, or they may choose not to, or they're not able to get a good job for whatever reason, or they choose not to. So this is someone who would take a brick, throw it through a storefront window to steal a stereo versus getting a job to earn money to purchase the stereo. It's called an innovator, and it is considered a deviant person according to Merton's theory. Okay, the third category, remember our first one was conformists, our second one was innovator, our third one is retreatist. These are people who reject the goal of material success and they reject the means. They retreat from society. They don't want to have any part to do with this material success obsession and the expectations to get an education and a job. And so they go live out in the woods all by themselves. We might say that they're trying to be off the grid. They may not be breaking any laws, but Merton says we as a society will see that as deviant behavior. We will wonder, why are they doing that? Why do they want to live out with no material possessions? Why do they want to live out alone all by themselves? We question that behavior. We as a society have deemed it as deviant. All right, our fourth category of person is what's called a ritualist. Now this is opposite of innovator. So these are people that reject the goal but accept the means. They don't want to have material success as their goal, but they understand that they still want to participate in society and they understand the means. And so, this is someone who, let's say, is a custodian for an office building. And they have no desire to try to get a different position in the office building, like maybe move over to the mailroom and work their way up the corporate ladder. That's not their goal. What their goal is something that has to do with their daily activities, generally speaking. And so their goal is going to be making that the cleanest, most pleasant building for people to come in each day and work. they become ritualistic about cleaning that office building. They are the people that will dust the air vents once a week instead of every other month. They're the ones who will come along and do a little straightening on your desk to make sure that that is a nice, clean, pleasant environment. They become ritualistic about their behavior. Doesn't seem that unusual, but again, Merton says we will see that as deviant. We will question that behavior. We will wonder, why do you think you're going to be happy being a custodian all of your life? Don't you want to try to and improve? Don't you want to try and improve with your education, with your job, with your finances? Merton says we see that as deviant behavior. And then the last category is what he calls a rebel. They reject the goal, reject the means, and create new goals and new means. So they go to the next step of creating new goals and new means. This would be an example of a missionary. A missionary rejects the goal of material success, and they create a new goal of spreading whatever religious message it is that they're, whatever missionary affiliation that they are. Well, since that's a new goal, they need to have new means. Another example would be people who want to create a new goal of environmental preservation. If that's their new goal, then they're going to have to create new means to reach that. Now, this is not someone who just wants to join, Greenpeace. This is someone who makes it a passion, an obsession, a total change in how they view society and what they want to strive for. So keep that in mind with rebel. It's not just your friend that's, passionate about something, but also has a nice house and 2 new cars. They're still in that material success goal. So just keep that in mind. It's a very drastic change. Okay, so those are our functionalist theories. We have Durkheim's theory on the benefit of deviance, and we have Robert Merton's strain theory. Now, let's talk about interactionism, my favorite. The basic idea behind this is that our daily interactions create our reality. The first theorist that focused on deviance we're going to talk about is Edwin Sutherland, and his theory is called differential association. Very, very simple theory. Most of us can relate to this. It is the idea that who you hang around with will create your view of deviance or normal behavior. Who you hang around with can either encourage or discourage deviant behavior. Any of us that are parents generally have this view with our children. We want them hanging around with good kids. We want them to hang around other people that have similar beliefs and goals that our family has. I have 2 kids in high school going on to college, hopefully when they finish. I want them hanging around with other kids who have that type of goal and mentality in their life. A saying that goes along with this theory is good companions make good boys. You can also use this theory in applying it to prisons and saying that prisons actually can be seen as a crime school, that you send a person who maybe committed a small crime in the scheme of things, send them to prison. Well, now they're surrounded by tons of people who've created bigger crimes, and they talk about how they got away with it the first time but got caught the second time, or talk about, well, here's what I did wrong. And so it can actually encourage more crime when they get released because they're hanging around criminals. So that's a differential association application as well. All right, another interactionist perspective is control theory. We as a society hope that our members can control themselves and can perform normal, acceptable behavior. If you can't, though, we will help you. We will help you conform. So the basic idea behind control theory is that we have inner and outer controls. Our inner controls are our internalization of what's considered right and wrong, our self-conscience of seeing, of thinking, well, my mom told me a long time ago not to do that, or that feeling of, oh, I can't steal that, even though, maybe your friends are pressuring you to. You're like, no, I can't. Your internalization of right and wrong is keeping you from committing a crime or deviant behavior. If that's not enough, we as a society hope our outer controls will keep you in normative behavior. And outer controls refers to your friends and family, hopefully encouraging you not to do deviant behavior, or the risk of embarrassment. Do you want your family to know that you got caught cheating on an exam? Do you want to be pulled over by a police officer on the side of the road and have people drive by because you live in a small town, they recognize your car and they know you got pulled over by the police for speeding? It's embarrassing. So socially speaking, that helps control your behavior. Now, the last interactionist perspective we're going to talk about with deviance is labeling theory. Now, this one's interesting, a little different, in that it takes the emphasis off of the person who committed the crime and places more of the emphasis on the audience viewing the crime. So let's say you have a person who stole something worth $25 or less, considered a small crime. How does that audience that knows about that crime, how are they going to react? And is their reaction going to encourage more deviance or normal behavior? Do the parents of that person scold them? Let's say it's a teenager where they care about what, well, I guess they wouldn't care about what their parents say, but maybe the parents scold them and tell them, they knew they were always a troublemaker and that now it's just finally evident because they stole this DVD, and going on and on and on, and you're such a disappointment and a loser, and it's, this, that, and the other. If that reaction then encourages that individual who originally committed the deviant behavior to go on to commit more deviant behavior, maybe they feel a sense of, well, my parents already think I'm a thug, I might as well act like a thug. Then labeling theory would say it's based on the label, that the label created the deviant behavior. Okay, that's it for interactionist perspective on deviance. Now, the last theory, stick with me, is conflict theory. The basic premise with conflict theory is that there is a continual struggle for power between those with power and those without power. In relation to deviance, conflict theorists argue that those people in power are the ones making the decision about what behavior is considered normal versus deviant. And they will point to things like saying, our society treats property crimes more severely than white-collar crimes because those people who are more likely to commit white-collar crimes are people in a powerful position. So that's something that they talk about with, as an example, that those people with power are making the laws and the expectations for behavior. They also point out that we're in a capitalist society, and so those people in power that are succeeding in the capitalist society will choose behavior that continues to support that type of society. So those people who are productive citizens in society and working hard are considered normal behavior people. Those people who are severely disabled and can't participate, or those people who are homeless, or those people who are not fully engaged in the capitalist system, those people are considered deviant people. And our culture perpetuates that because those people in power are the ones teaching us what is acceptable and deviant behavior, according to conflict theorists. Okay, that's it for deviance. I hope you enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite topics. I wish we were in a seated class where we could have more discussion on it. But I look forward to reading about your ideas in the discussion forum. Have a good day.